It's funny how life can turn upside down in a second. I never thought I'd be here, standing in front of her grave, wondering if everything I ever believed was a lie. She told me she loved me every day, without fail. Her eyes would light up whenever I walked into a room, like I was the only person who mattered. And for a long time, I believed it. We had our ups and downs, sure, but every relationship does. Still, I thought we were solid until the day she died. The day she died, everything changed. The moment I saw her, cold and still, lying in that sterile hospital bed, I felt my heart break in a way I never thought possible. But then came the twist, the one thing I never saw coming. She had a secret, and she left it for me to find. A letter. Hidden under her pillow, only to be discovered when it was too late. "I never loved you," the letter began. My hands shook as I read the words over and over, trying to make sense of them. "I loved someone else. I married you because I thought it was the right thing to do. But the truth is, I never wanted this life with you." Those words echoed in my mind, each syllable sharper than the last. How could she say that? After everything we've been through, how could she leave me with that? With the truth? So cold? So cruel? I thought I'd moved on. I thought the grief of her passing would be the hardest part. But what if she hadn't died? What if she'd never left me with that letter? I found myself standing at her grave, questioning everything about our life together. How long had she been hiding this? How long had I been living in a lie? And as I stood there, I couldn't help but wonder if I hadn't lost her, would I have ever known the truth? Would I have ever been brave enough to face the betrayal that had been hidden from me all along? Her death didn't just take her away. It took my sense of reality, my trust, my very foundation. I was left not just mourning the loss of her, but the loss of the person I thought she was. And then, something happened. A twist I couldn't have prepared for. A twist that would change everything once again. Because now, somehow, she was back. For the longest time, I thought I had everything I ever wanted. My life was built around her, around us. We met at university, two lost souls stumbling through the chaos of young adulthood. I remember the first time I saw her, she was sitting at the back of the lecture hall, eyes glued to her notebook, hair falling in soft waves around her face. There was something so effortlessly beautiful about her, something I couldn't quite place. I hadn't been looking for love, but when she looked up, locking eyes with me for the first time, I felt something shift in the universe. I swear, time paused for a moment. From that day on, we were inseparable. We'd meet for coffee at the local cafe after classes, talk for hours about our dreams, our fears, and everything in between. She had this way of making everything feel so alive, like the world could be anything we wanted it to be. Her laughter was the soundtrack of my days, the thing that made everything seem worth it. Every moment with her felt like a gift. She was perfect, or at least, I thought she was. We built a life together. Our relationship became the kind of love people wrote songs about, passionate, easy, and full of promise. We moved in together after graduation, rented a small apartment in the city, and began to navigate the chaos of the real world. She worked in marketing. I worked as a freelance writer. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Every night, we'd curl up on the couch with takeout and a movie, content in the simple joys. It wasn't just about romance, it was about companionship. She understood me in ways no one else did. She knew when I needed space and when I needed her to hold me. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, the kind that lasted for hours, no matter how tired we were. It felt like we were on the same wavelength, like we had an unspoken connection that no one else could touch. I never questioned her loyalty because, in my heart, I thought we were perfect for each other. But of course, life isn't always as perfect as it seems. For a while, things were as good as they could be. We were young, free, and in love. But the cracks started to show slowly, quietly, like the soft creaking of an old floorboard that you try to ignore. But eventually, it becomes too loud to dismiss. It started with little things. She'd cancel plans at the last minute. She'd get quiet for no reason, staring out of the window as if her mind was elsewhere. I told myself it was nothing, everyone had their off days, right? But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One evening, I came home to find her sitting on the couch, staring at her phone. The glow from the screen illuminated her face, but she didn't seem to notice. I called her name softly, and she looked up, but there was something distant in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. It was like I was looking at a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice hesitant. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, just tired," she said, her voice thin. She tucked her phone away quickly, but the way she did it made my stomach twist. It wasn't like her to hide anything from me. But I didn't press her then. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she wasn't telling me. Something that had changed. The months that followed were a blur of confusion. The small signs of distance became more frequent. She was still there, physically, but emotionally, she seemed to be slipping away, little by little. The girl who once lit up the room with her laughter now seemed like a shadow of herself. Her smiles became fewer, and our conversations grew shorter. I noticed how her gaze would wander when I spoke, like she was thinking about someone else. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to face the truth. I tried to make excuses for her. She was just stressed, I told myself. She had a lot on her plate at work. Maybe she was just going through a phase. I tried to hold on to the image of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who used to dance around our kitchen while making breakfast, the one who would pull me into her arms and whisper sweet nothings before bed. But that woman felt like a distant memory now. Still, I held on to hope. I convinced myself that if I just kept trying, if I just kept being patient and understanding, everything would go back to normal. But what I didn't realize was that normal was slipping further and further away from me. She was slipping further and further away from me. The breaking point came one evening, on an ordinary Tuesday, when she came home later than usual. I was waiting for her in the living room, flicking through a book, pretending to be absorbed, but my mind was elsewhere, on her. When she walked in, she didn't look at me immediately. Instead, she dropped her bag by the door and moved quickly into the kitchen. "Hey," I called, trying to keep my voice calm. "How was your day?" "Fine," she replied, her tone distant, as if she wasn't even really listening to me. I stood up, unable to ignore the tightness in my chest any longer. "Are we okay?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I knew it sounded desperate, but I couldn't help myself. She didn't respond right away. She kept her back to me, busying herself with putting away her things. "Yeah, we're fine," she said after a long pause, but I could hear the lie in her voice. That night, I lay awake beside her, the soft sound of her breathing doing nothing to calm my restless mind. I reached over, trying to touch her, to feel her warmth beside me. But even in the darkness, I could feel the distance between us. And that's when it hit me. The woman I loved, the woman who had once been my everything, was no longer the same. And I was terrified that I'd already lost her. But there was no turning back now. No amount of effort could undo the distance that had already formed between us. At that moment, I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. It was a Thursday evening when everything began to unravel. I had spent the whole day working from home, half-heartedly trying to focus on my writing while the growing sense of unease gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that something was happening that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. I had ignored the signs for so long, hoping they were just in my head. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. She had been quieter than usual, even when she did speak. Her words felt hollow. There was always a little distance between us now, like a thin, invisible wall had been erected, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break through it. But I was still in denial, telling myself that maybe it was just a phase, that we were both tired, both overwhelmed by life. I had planned to meet her at our favorite cafe that evening, the one where we had spent countless hours talking about our dreams and our future, the one place that had always felt like our spot. She hadn't been as enthusiastic about it lately, but I still held on to the hope that tonight might be different. When I arrived, the little bell on the door jingled as I walked in, but I immediately noticed something was off. She wasn't sitting at our usual table by the window, her coffee cup half empty, waiting for me. Instead, she was sitting at a corner booth with someone else. A man. My heart stopped. For a moment, everything seemed to blur around me. The noise of the cafe, the clinking of cups, the hum of conversations, all fading into a dull background. I was frozen, my eyes locked on them. She was laughing. A laugh I hadn't heard in months. A real laugh, the kind I used to hear when we first met. It was so genuine, so free, and the man sitting across from her was leaning in, clearly captivated by whatever she was saying. They were close too close. Her hand was resting on the table, fingers lightly brushing against his, and I watched as he reached out to touch her wrist, his thumb brushing over her skin. It was like a slap in the face, the sting of reality cutting through me with brutal force. My breath caught in my throat as I tried to process what I was seeing. I wanted to turn away, to leave, but my body wouldn't move. My legs felt like stone, rooted to the floor as I watched them interact like they were the only two people in the world. I finally snapped out of my stupor and forced myself to walk over to the booth. I didn't know what I was going to say, didn't know how to react, but I couldn't just stand there. Not when everything I had known was starting to crumble around me. Her eyes widened as I approached, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before she quickly masked it with a smile. But it wasn't the smile that I knew. It wasn't the warm, welcoming smile that had always made me feel like the luckiest person in the room. No, this one was stiff, forced, like she was trying to hide something. "Hey," I said, my voice shaky, but trying to sound calm. "I didn't know you had plans." She glanced at the man across from her and then back at me, her eyes darting between us as if trying to figure out what to say. "Oh, this is Mark," she said, her voice light, almost too light. "He's a colleague from work. We were just catching up." Mark? The name sounded foreign on her lips. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He was handsome in a quiet, unassuming way, his brown hair neatly combed and his blue eyes sparkling with amusement as he smiled at me. But it wasn't his appearance that bothered me. It was the way he looked at her, the way he leaned in just a little too close, the way his hand lingered on the table. It was like he belonged there, like he was part of her world now in a way I wasn't. I nodded slowly, my heart sinking lower with every passing second. "I didn't know you were that close with him," I managed to say, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. My hands felt clammy, my thoughts racing. "We've just been working together on a project," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She was avoiding my gaze, and that simple action told me everything I needed to know. I glanced back at Mark, forcing a polite smile. "Nice to meet you, Mark." My voice felt hollow, distant, like I was saying the words more out of habit than anything else. "Likewise," he said, his voice smooth and confident. He extended his hand to shake mine, but I hesitated for a moment before taking it. His grip was firm, but I couldn't shake the sense that something wasn't right. It felt too casual, too easy. I sat down, though I wasn't sure why. Part of me wanted to get up and leave, to run far away from this painful moment, but another part of me stayed rooted to the spot, wanting to understand. I glanced at her again, watching the way she smiled at Mark, the way her eyes softened when she looked at him. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask her what the hell was going on, but my throat felt tight, the words trapped inside. Instead, I sat there, silent, pretending like everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Everything was falling apart, and I had no idea how to stop it. As the conversation continued around me, I felt more and more like an outsider in my own life. They talked about work, about projects, about trivial things that didn't matter, but all I could think about was the distance between me and her. The distance that had been growing for months, and now it was glaringly obvious. She was slipping away from me, and I didn't even know how to hold on anymore. When she glanced at her phone, checking the time, I saw my opportunity. "I think I'll head out," I said, standing up abruptly. I didn't want to sit there anymore. Didn't want to pretend like I wasn't being slowly torn apart. "I'll leave you two to it." Her eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't try to stop me. "You sure?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "I'll see you later." I walked out of the cafe, my heart pounding in my chest, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. The image of her laughing with him, of her acting so naturally, so comfortable with someone else, was burned into my mind. That was the moment I knew. I knew that whatever we had, whatever love I thought we shared, was no longer there. And I didn't know how to fix it, or if I even could. I walked out of the cafe, the door closing behind me with a hollow thud. The chill of the evening air hit me like a slap, but it barely registered. My mind was reeling. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it might burst. Every step I took felt heavier, like I was sinking into the ground with each footfall. What was I supposed to do now? Was it even worth confronting her? A part of me wanted to believe that it was all just a misunderstanding. Maybe Mark was just a colleague. Maybe she was just being friendly. But another part of me, the part that had been holding on to hope for so long, already knew. Deep down, I knew what I had seen wasn't just some innocent catch-up between coworkers. It was more than that. It was the way she looked at him like he was the only person in the room. It was the way her hand had brushed against his so casually, so naturally. And that laugh god, that laugh she, hadn't laughed like that in months. Not for me. I leaned against the cold brick wall outside the cafe, trying to steady my breath. It felt like the world was spinning out of control, like everything I had built, everything I had trusted, was slipping through my fingers. I should confront her, I thought. I should march right back in there and demand answers. I needed to know what was going on. But what if I was wrong? What if I was just being paranoid, imagining things that weren't really there? I had no real proof of anything. Just a few moments, a few glances. But those glances were all it took to unravel everything. The distance, the lies, the avoidance, it was all coming together now. How could I ignore it? I could already feel the sting of betrayal, the gut-wrenching pain of seeing her with someone else. But what was worse was the thought that I might have missed it all along. Had I been so blind? So wrapped up in my own self-delusion that I couldn't see what was right in front of me? I pulled my phone from my pocket, the screen lighting up with a new message. It was from her. "Hey, I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. Can we talk tonight?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the urge to reply immediately battling with the overwhelming urge to throw the phone across the street. What was I supposed to say to her? Was this her trying to cover her tracks? Was this some half-hearted apology to get me off her back? Or was she genuinely sorry? I couldn't tell. I didn't know who she was anymore. I didn't know who I was anymore. I let the phone fall into my lap as I stared at the message. The cold air bit at my skin, but I couldn't bring myself to care. My mind was elsewhere, racing back to the cafe, back to that moment when I walked in and saw her with him. Back to that laugh. That damn laugh. I started pacing, my thoughts spiraling. What was she doing with him? Was she seeing him behind my back? Was she already falling for him? The questions slammed into me one after the other, each one more suffocating than the last. But I couldn't stop them. I couldn't stop the flood of emotions, of doubt, of betrayal that came rushing in. What hurt the most was that I had tried. I had tried so damn hard to be there for her, to be understanding, to give her space when she needed it, to support her through everything. But maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe it was never enough. Maybe she had already checked out long before I realized it. I couldn't even remember the last time she had looked at me the way she looked at him. When had she stopped seeing me? When had I stopped being enough for her? The longer I stood there, the more I questioned myself. Had I missed the signs? Were there things I should have seen? Things I should have known? Or was I just being foolish, clinging to the idea of something that wasn't real anymore? Maybe I was the one who had failed. Maybe I had let her slip away without even noticing. I couldn't just let it go. Not when everything felt like it was falling apart. I needed to know the truth. I needed to understand why she was drifting, why I wasn't the one she was turning to anymore. I pressed my thumb against the phone screen, hesitating before typing a reply. What was I even going to say? I didn't want to sound desperate, didn't want to beg for her attention. But the words tumbled out anyway. We need to talk. I don't know what's going on, but I need to understand. I hit send before I could think better of it. The reply came almost instantly. I know, and I'm sorry. Can we meet tonight? Meet tonight? I wanted to say no, to tell her I couldn't bear to look at her right now. But I couldn't. I had to face this. I had to hear it from her, whatever it was. I didn't want to be left in the dark, imagining scenarios in my head. I needed the truth, even if it shattered everything I thought I knew. Okay, I replied, my hands trembling as I hit send. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know what to expect when I saw her again. Would she deny everything? Would she come clean? Or would she lie to my face, pretending nothing was wrong? The questions gnawed at me as I stood there in the cold, waiting for whatever came next. I didn't know if I could handle it. But I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't keep pretending that nothing was wrong. The truth was waiting for me, and I couldn't run from it any longer. The day after the cafe, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying that moment over and over: her laughter, the way she touched his hand, the way she looked at him with something I hadn't seen in her eyes for so long. It haunted me, gnawing at my insides like a constant ache. I tried to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But I knew, deep down, that I wasn't. I spent the morning pacing around my apartment trying to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering back to her message. She had apologized, but was that enough? Could I really believe that everything would be okay if I just forgave her? Or was I fooling myself? She had asked to meet that night, and I had agreed. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I was ready for whatever she was going to say. I wasn't sure if I could handle it. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at my phone, when I received another message from her. Hey, I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet earlier? My heart dropped. Something important? What could that possibly mean? My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't respond right away. Something felt off. The pit in my stomach deepened, and my mind raced with possibilities. What if she wasn't just apologizing? What if there was more to this than I realized? What if she was going to tell me something that would change everything? I couldn't sit there any longer. I grabbed my coat and keys and left, heading to the spot where we had planned to meet. I tried to steady my breath, but it was like my body was on autopilot, moving without me. When I arrived, I spotted her sitting at a table near the back of the coffee shop, her eyes scanning the room nervously. She looked different. Her posture was tense, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. She was always calm, collected, but now she seemed like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. I approached her cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked. Her eyes flickered up to meet mine, and I saw a flash of something guilt, maybe before she quickly looked away. Hey, she replied, her voice soft, almost hesitant. I sat down across from her, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt like 1,000 miles, and I could feel the tension crackling in the air. She began, but her voice trailed off. She took a deep breath, as if gathering the strength to say whatever it was that had been weighing on her. Just tell me, I said, my voice more desperate than I intended. Whatever it is, just say it. I need to know. She opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, and for a split second, her face faltered. I saw a brief flicker of panic. She quickly reached for the phone, but I was already leaning forward, unable to stop myself. Who is it? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I instantly regretted the tone, but it was too late. Her hand froze, her fingers hovering over the screen for a moment before she slowly put the phone back down. It's nothing, she said, her voice shaky. I could feel my pulse quickening, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. The way she had looked at the phone, the way she'd hesitated, was like a dam breaking inside of me. Something was happening. Something that was much worse than I had prepared myself for. Tell me what's going on, I demanded, my heart racing. I've seen the way you've been acting, the way you've been distant, and now this. Who is that? She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that terrified me. It wasn't guilt. wasn't regret, it was fear. And then, as if she had made some internal decision, she finally spoke. "I've been seeing someone else," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stared at her, unable to process what she had just said. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, trying to find some way to explain it away. "You what?" I managed to choke out. My chest felt tight, like there was no air left to breathe. "What are you talking about? You've been seeing him all this time?" "I never meant for it to happen," she repeated, her voice trembling. "It's just I don't know. I wasn't happy, and I didn't know how to tell you." My vision blurred, and I had to blink to clear my eyes. "How long?" I whispered, barely able to get the words out. She looked down at her hands, unable to meet my gaze. "A few months," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." The room felt like it was spinning. I could barely breathe. "A few months?" She'd been seeing someone else for months, and I hadn't had a single clue. All those late nights, all those times she'd been too busy to spend time with me, was all a lie. She had been lying to my face, and I had been too blind to see it. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't her phone had just buzzed again. The same sound, the same name flashing on the screen. My eyes shot to it before I could stop myself. The name on the screen made my blood run cold. It was Mark. The same man I had seen her with in the cafe. I looked up at her, feeling the ground shift beneath me. "This isn't just a mistake, is it?" I whispered. "You've been seeing him all this time, and you didn't tell me. You didn't say a word. And now you're just going to tell me this?" Her face crumpled, her tears starting to spill over. "I never meant for it to happen like this," she sobbed. "But I can't lie anymore. I'm in love with him." The world went silent. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in, shattered in that moment. The betrayal was real. And it was worse than I could have ever imagined. I couldn't breathe. The words she had just spoken echoed in my head, each one louder than the last. "I'm in love with him." It felt like a punch to my gut, knocking the wind out of me, leaving me breathless and hollow. I sat there, staring at her, not sure if I was even seeing her clearly anymore. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, had just admitted to something that destroyed everything we had. She was still crying, her face crumpled in guilt, but there was no escaping it now. The truth was out, and there was no hiding behind apologies or excuses. I had seen the signs, felt the distance growing between us, but to hear her say it out, loud, it shattered everything. I stood up abruptly, the movement making her flinch. "You're in love with him?" I couldn't believe how calm my voice sounded, as if I were a stranger watching from the outside, detached from the chaos that was unfolding. "You've been lying to me for months, and now you're telling me you're in love with someone else?" She nodded, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I never meant for it to happen. I'm sorry, I really am. But it's true. I can't keep pretending." I took a step back, my body trembling with the weight of her words. I wanted to shout, to scream at her, to demand answers, but something inside me just froze. It wasn't anger that burned through me. It was something far worse. It was the crushing realization that everything I thought I knew was a lie. I couldn't look at her anymore. I turned away, pacing the floor, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts, of images, of what could have been. How long had she been lying? How long had she been planning this? I had spent so many sleepless nights, trying to hold on to a relationship that wasn't even real anymore. I had given everything I had, everything I was, and it hadn't been enough. It would never be enough. Why? I finally choked out, my voice cracking with the weight of the question. "Why didn't you just tell me? Why did you have to hide it? Why didn't you just leave me instead of doing this?" Her shoulders shook as she tried to speak, but the words were trapped behind her sobs. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could choose you, but I couldn't. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you this way, but I've fallen for him. I never meant for it to happen, but it did. Ah. I couldn't listen to her anymore. The words felt like daggers in my chest, each one sinking deeper, twisting with every syllable. I couldn't understand how she could sit there, so calm, so composed, while she tore apart the life we had built. Everything I had trusted about her, everything I had believed in, had crumbled like dust. You really don't get it, do you? I spat, the anger bubbling up, but it wasn't anger that made me lash out, it was desperation. You don't understand how much this hurts. How much I gave you. I gave you everything, and you just threw it away for him. I never meant for it to happen like this, she whispered again, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of humor. It was hollow, bitter, the sound of everything dying inside me. And yet here we are, aren't we? You've already hurt me, and now you want to apologize. It's too late for that, isn't it? You can't just undo what you've done. There was a long pause, the silence hanging in the air between us, suffocating. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but it wasn't the kind of pounding that came with excitement or passion. It was the kind that came with loss. The kind that came when you realized you were standing at the edge of something, and there was nothing left to hold on to. I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. Please, don't go, she said, her voice small and fragile. I need you to understand. I didn't know why I stopped. Maybe it was the sound of her voice. Maybe it was the tiny shred of hope I had left, desperately clinging to the idea that maybe she hadn't completely destroyed everything between us. But I turned back, slowly, and looked at her. Her eyes were pleading with me, but it wasn't enough. Nothing she could say could fix what she had broken. What do you want me to understand? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What could you possibly say to make this better? You've chosen him, haven't you? You've already made your choice. And it isn't me. Her lips trembled, and she reached out for me, but I took a step back. Please, go, don't touch me. I could see the tears running down her face, and for a moment, I almost felt guilty for being so cold. But I couldn't let myself feel that. Not anymore. Not after everything she had taken from me. Do you even know what you've done? I asked, my voice rising. Do you understand what it means to betray someone like this? I gave you my trust, my love, everything I had, and you threw it all away for him. And now, you want me to forgive you? I never wanted this, she said, her voice shaking. I never wanted to hurt you like this. I thought I could make it work, but I couldn't. I can't keep lying to you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't fix the broken pieces. Sorry didn't erase the fact that she had chosen someone else over me. I don't want your apology, I said coldly. I don't want anything from you anymore. Her face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw her break down completely. But it was too late. The damage was done. I turned away from her, not able to look at her any longer. I couldn't. Not when everything I had believed in had been shattered beyond repair. She was right. She was in love with him. And there was nothing left for me here. Nothing at all. As I walked out of that cafe, the door closing behind me with a quiet thud, I felt like I was walking away from everything I had ever known. The woman I loved was gone, and nothing would ever be the same again. I walked away from the cafe, my footsteps echoing in the empty street, each one a reminder of everything I had lost. The air was cold, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel anything really. It was like the world had become numb, muted, as though I were moving through it in a haze. My mind kept replaying the events of the past few hours, the betrayal, her tears, the way she had looked at me as if she expected me to forgive her. But I couldn't. I couldn't just pretend that everything was fine, that she hadn't ripped my heart out and stomped on it. For the first time in months, I felt like I was finally seeing things clearly. I wasn't blinded by love or hope anymore. I wasn't holding on to some version of her that no longer existed. She was gone, and the person I had trusted more than anyone had become a stranger. The reality of it settled in like a weight in my chest, suffocating me with its finality. I hadn't expected to feel so empty. I had braced myself for the pain, for the anger. But what I hadn't prepared for was the hollow feeling that came with knowing that she wasn't the person I thought she was. That everything between us had been a lie. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The apartment we had shared felt like a tomb, each corner filled with memories that only brought pain. So, I walked. I walked through the streets, not caring where I was going, just needing to put as much distance between myself and her as possible. I ended up at the park, a quiet place I used to visit when I needed to clear my head. It was empty now, save for a few late-night joggers and the occasional stray dog. The benches were still there, just as I remembered them, but everything felt different now. The world felt different. The familiar sights were all tainted by the past. I sat down on one of the benches, staring into the distance, trying to make sense of it all. I thought back to the beginning. To when we first met, to the laughter we shared, to the way she had looked at me with that softness in her eyes. I had thought I was the one she loved, the one she'd always be with. But that was just a dream. A dream I had built on nothing but lies. And now, here I was, alone. I didn't know what to do next. The thought of confronting her again, of trying to get closure, felt pointless. She had already made her decision. She had already chosen him. There was no going back from that. But something inside me stirred a flicker of rage, of frustration. I had let myself become this, let myself believe in a future with her when it was all just smoke and mirrors. I had given her my heart, and she had thrown it away without a second thought. That wasn't something I could just let go. It wasn't something I could forgive easily. For a moment, I wondered if I should fight for her, if I should demand that she come back to me, that she choose me instead of him. But then I realized that doing so would be nothing but a waste of time. I would only be chasing after something that had already slipped through my fingers. She was gone, and no amount of pleading would bring her back. The anger that had been simmering inside me began to fade, replaced by something else's strange sense of clarity. I didn't need her. I didn't need anyone who could betray me like that. I didn't need someone who could throw away years of love and trust for someone else. I was better than that. And I would learn to live without her. But just as I started to accept the reality of the situation, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting it to be a message from her. Some last-ditch attempt to explain herself or beg for forgiveness. But when I saw the name on the screen, my heart skipped a beat. It was Mark. My mind raced. Why was he contacting me? What could he possibly want? I had no interest in talking to him. He was the man who had taken everything from me, the man who had shattered my world. But still, curiosity gnawed at me, and against my better judgment, I answered the call. Hello? My voice came out shakier than I intended. Hey. Mark's voice came through, casual and unbothered. It's Mark. I swallowed hard. I know who it is. What do you want? He let out a small laugh, as if he found something amusing. Look, I know this is probably weird, but we need to talk. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my emotions in check. Talk about what? There's nothing to talk about. You've already taken her from me. What more is there to say? Mark sighed, and for a moment, I almost expected him to apologize, to back off and admit what a mess everything was. But that wasn't what happened. Actually, there's something you need to know, he said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. I didn't just take her from you. She wasn't just some passing fling. I didn't steal her away. It's not what you think. I felt the pang of confusion mixed with anger. What are you talking about? She's been hiding something from you, Mark said, his words slow and deliberate. There's more to the story than you realize. And if you want the truth, I think you need to hear it from me. I felt my breath catch in my throat. What truth? You're not going to like it, he warned. But I think it's time you knew. She's been keeping a secret from both of us, one that's going to change everything you think you know. I stood up, pacing again, trying to make sense of what he was saying. What secret? What are you trying to pull here, Mark? He was silent for a moment before speaking again, his voice low and measured. Just be careful. The truth is darker than you think. My heart raced as the call ended abruptly. I stood there in the park, trying to process his words. What secret? What could he possibly mean? I didn't know what to believe anymore. Everything had been turned upside down, and now there was another layer to the betrayal, something deeper than I had ever imagined. I thought I was done. I thought I had reached the end of this painful journey. But now I was left with more questions than answers. As I stood there in the cold night, I realized that maybe the worst was yet to come. And just like that, everything I knew about love, about trust, about who I thought she was gone. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next.